Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our final Crops Winter webinar of the season. My name is Ashley Kaminsky, and I'm the Crops Extension Specialist out of the Humboldt Regional Office. I will be your chair today. The topic of our webinar today is getting the most out of your crop protection guide. We will hear from a few specialists within the Ministry of Agriculture who do a great deal of work on the guide every year and can speak to the updates and changes to the book, as well as point out key features that might be helpful when trying to make certain spray decisions. Before we begin, I have a few items to run through. CEUs are being offered for CCAs on this webinar. To get credit, you must attend the entire live event. There will be a QR code at the end of the presentation to scan and collect your credit. If you missed the code and have attended live, please email us afterwards and we can assist you to get your credit. The Crops Extension Specialist team puts on this webinar series each year. We work out of 10 different offices across the province. Each office contains a wide variety of specialists that can help you with any agriculture-based question. If you don't know the phone number to your closest regional office and would like to reach a specialist, enter the Ag Knowledge Center number in your phone as a contact. The Ag Knowledge Center, or AKC, is based out of Moose Jaw and is the first point of contact for all things agriculture in Saskatchewan. There are 8 agri-arm sites located throughout the province that are dedicated to bringing Saskatchewan-specific information and demonstrations on new and existing agricultural practices. If you're interested in learning more, please follow the QR code on the screen. They also have upcoming field days this summer, so make sure you mark your calendars if you're interested in attending one near you. The Ministry of Agriculture is looking for additional Bertha armyworm survey cooperators. If you're a grower or agronomist that is interested in helping us out, our biggest gap areas are in the southern areas of the province, as well as east central Saskatchewan. The survey takes place from early July until early August. Your participation will help increase the accuracy of the Bertha armyworm survey maps that are released weekly during the monitoring season. Supplies are free free of charge and would be mailed out to you directly. If you're interested in participating, please email pestsurveys@gov.sk.ca to sign up. Crop Diagnostic School will be held at Scott, Saskatchewan this year on July 23rd and 24th. More details are coming soon on that event. Follow our social media for more updated information. We also want to make sure everyone is aware of the funding available through the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership. You can reach out to your local programs specialists or phone the AKC to find what funding you may qualify for. Along with this information, we have additional resources for everyone under the handout section in the chat box area of the toolbar. These will be shared with you again after the webinar is complete. The entire webinar today will be recorded, so if you miss anything or wish to revisit any of the presentations, you can. Recording links will be sent out later this week in a follow-up email. You can, however, find all recorded CROPS webinars on our webinar YouTube channel. You can find us by searching Saskatchewan Agriculture Webinars or find us with our handle at AgSaskWebinars. At the end of the webinar today, an evaluation will pop up. Please ensure that you fill this out, as this helps us determine what topics you want to learn more about and help us prioritize research needs for the future. If anybody has questions during any of the presentations, you may type them in the question box at the top right-hand side of your control panel. We will get to as many questions as possible. Your question will remain anonymous and will only be sent to me. During the presentation, you will be muted so that we can ensure there's no feedback that will interfere with the audio. All right, let's get started. Our first speaker is Tice Massich, Crops Extension Specialist from the Outlook office. Tice is going to do a quick review of our Saskatchewan Crop Report system. We mention Crop Report frequently at events, but often need to provide some clarification afterwards on what it's all about. So Tice is a writer for Crop Report and helps manage the online survey platform. Take it away, Tice.
Well, thank you, Ashley, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Tice Massich. I'm a Crops Extension Specialist, and I'm also one of the writers for the Saskatchewan Crop Report. At Ministry of Ag events and on webinars like this one, you probably hear us talk about or encouraging you to sign up to be a crop reporter or consider signing up. But you So some we might sound like a broken record, but to some we might, or you might be wondering what exactly that means to be a crop reporter. So today I'll be doing a bit of a deeper dive into the crop report and what it means to be a crop reporter. So first up, what is the crop report? The crop report is a weekly publication that the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture puts out that gives a provincial and regional update on growing conditions throughout Saskatchewan, and we rely on data from many of our crop reporters we have all throughout the province. So we discuss topics like seeding and harvest progress, rainfall, topsoil moisture, uh, crop yields, crop grades, and among other topics. But it's not limited to annual crop production. The livestock sector also has is also represented in the crop report, as we also report on hay yields and quality throughout the growing season. So it's viewed in Saskatchewan by producers and agrologists that want kind of an update of what's going on in the area, as well as provincial media outlets as well. But it's also viewed by many outside of Saskatchewan throughout Canada and throughout the entire world. This includes policymakers, marketers, investors, and our global trading partners. So we currently have approximately 225 active reporters throughout the province, and all the red dots on this map here that you can see are where our crop reporters are located, and we're pretty happy with our 225 active reporters. That's a lot of information coming in each week, but we still encourage more people to sign up. So the RMs shaded in green are RMs that currently have an active crop reporter, and the RMs shaded in orange currently don't have an active crop reporter. My ultimate vision is to paint this entire map green, so please help me out with that by signing up to be a crop reporter, especially if you're in an RM that doesn't have an active reporter. But if you are in an RM that does have a crop reporter, I still encourage you to sign up because one set of eyes is better than two in an RM, and it's just good to have that extra information coming in each week. So, what's a week in the life of a crop reporter look like? So, first things first, at the beginning of March each year, we send out a spring mail out package to all of our crop reporters with everything they need to successfully report during the growing season. This includes our rain gauge, rainfall calendars, a survey booklet, and other technical information. But if after this webinar you decide you want to sign up to be a crop reporter, it's never too late to sign up. You can sign up anytime during the growing season. We'll send you one of these mail out packages as soon as we receive your registration information. So how it works is on Monday morning, we typically send out a survey link to our reporters that choose to report online, either by text or email. And reporters have until 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning to submit their survey results to us. There's some reporters that prefer to fill out the survey booklet that we send out at the beginning of the growing season and to call the Ag Knowledge Center before 9 a.m. on Wednesday to submit their answers, but this is becoming less common, I guess. So, and then on Wednesday, we take the survey data, we rate the report, and then we publish it on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. On the survey, weekly survey, the only minimum or the only question that's required for producers to fill out is the first question, which is the rainfall information question, and the rest of the questions after that are actually optional. So you only have to fill out questions that you have an answer for. But our last question on each survey is just a general comment section for you to list any observations you're seeing in your area and just to kind of give your thoughts on kind of what's going on. So this is usually the first question that us writers read each week, and it just gives us good, valuable information, like a boots on the ground perspective of what's going on in that area. So I highly encourage you to fill out that last question as well. So where exactly does the crop report data go? It's obviously used to write our reports, but it's also used to create visuals like the map and the tables that you can see on the bottom of your screen here. And then it also goes into updating our crop report dashboard, which is a free online resource for anyone to use, and it's on the Government of Saskatchewan website. If you want to know any data or statistics related to crop production in Saskatchewan, you can find it on the crop report dashboard on our website. And you can find it for the current year or for previous years going back literally decades. So some of the perks of being a crop reporter is each year we send our reporters a small, just appreciation gift, just to show our appreciation for the service that you're giving us. Long-term reporters are invited to an appreciation event where we give you a slightly more expensive gift, and you also get to enjoy a meal with the Saskatchewan Agriculture Minister. And you also get the satisfaction knowing that you're providing a valuable service to the industry because, like I mentioned before, there are so many people that read the crop report within Saskatchewan and beyond. So how can you sign up to be a crop reporter? There are a few different ways. You can either scan this QR code on the screen here. You can call the Agriculture Knowledge Center at 1-866-457-2377, or you can email cropreport@gov.sk.ca. A common misconception when it comes to the crop report is you don't necessarily have to be a grain farmer to be a crop reporter. Obviously, people that are grain farmers make excellent candidates for being crop reporters, but we have many reporters that are agrologists that work with producers or just have a good understanding of what's going on in their area. Livestock producers, like I mentioned, we do report on some livestock data, so it's good to have livestock producers as well, or people that are just retired from the ag industry. Either they used to be an agrologist or they used to farm and they want to keep up. This is a good way to do so. So really, it's anybody listening to this webinar can sign up to be a crop reporter, and I encourage you to do so. So that takes me to the end of my presentation. It was pretty short and sweet. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat of this webinar, and we can either answer them on the call here, or I can just reply to you one-on-one, or you can email this crop reporter email, call the Acknowledge Center, or you can reach out to me directly. And here's my contact information on the screen here, and I'll answer any questions you have or help you get signed up. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. So back to you, Ashley.
Awesome. Thanks, Tice. I don't think we have any questions right now for crop report. So if anyone has any questions that come to mind later on, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll make note of them and make sure that your question gets answered. Okay, our next speaker is Cory Jacob. Cory is the Acting Provincial Weed Control Specialist for the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture. He works to provide information and recommendations on weed control and the Weed Control Act to producers, agronomists, government departments and agencies, as well as municipalities. He grew up on a grain farm in southeast Saskatchewan. He received both his Bachelor and Master's of Science in Agriculture from the University of Saskatchewan. We'll start whenever you're ready, Cory.
Excellent. Kate, thanks very much. Ashley, you can hear me and see my screen okay?
You betcha, looks good.
Excellent. Thank you. Perfect. Kate, thanks for the excuse me. Thanks for the introduction there, Ashley. Good morning, everyone, as well. Thanks for taking some time to tune in to our webinar, kind of based on getting the most out of your guide to crop protection. So, as Ashley said, I'm Cory Jacob. I'm the acting weed control specialist with the Ministry of Ag. I've been acting for about a year, I think, in 6 or 7 months in the role. So I'll be one of your speakers today, as well as Alireza Akhavan, our pathologist, our provincial pathologist, will be covering part of the guide, and then James Tansey, our provincial entomologist, as well, will be covering his section in the guide. So, a bit of an outline of what we would like to cover this morning. So, I'm going to go over a bit of some the introduction, the guide to crop protection, some extra tidbits that are in there that maybe you weren't aware of, or if you haven't been using it for for as long of a time. As well, going to go over kind of the weed control and the herbicide section, and as well just going to touch on the plant growth regulator section. And then once I'm done there, I will let Alireza talk about the foliar fungicide and seed treatment section of the guide. And then last but not least, there James Tansey will cover the insecticide section and what he whatever his presentation entails there. So with that, of course, this is a picture of the cover of the 2025 Guide to Crop Protection. So that's kind of our Bible for crop protection, right? How to for controlling pests, for weeds, diseases, and insects, and how do we control them, and it has a plethora of information in it, we'll put it that way. And I've been using the guide for probably 16 17 years, and it's changed a lot since I've started using it to where it is now. Of course, it's a lot larger and a lot bigger and a lot more complex, so I thought I would just go through some of the areas, that, it's a bit of information that's in the guide that maybe it's been there for quite a while and just a reminder of where it is. But first, I want to start off by saying, where can you get a copy of the Guide to Crop Protection? So there's a number of different outlets that would have it. Of course, your local crop input retail. We had those sent out back in about mid-March. March 20th, they were available, so the crop input retail should be flush with them or be getting them out there with seeding, just be starting here right away. As well, our Ministry of Agriculture regional offices all have crop protection guides, and there's other vendors as well that have them. If you want to access a digital copy of the document, I normally Google something like Guide to Crop Protection SK or maybe Crop Protection Guide. Some version of that will get you to the online copy as well, where you have access to be able to download the entire guide, or one section in particular that might interest you. Or if you like using that and then searching for a herbicide or a weed you're trying to control, or some other means of using it. But of course, the online copy is there and is up to date as well. So with that, I just want to bring some attention to some areas, in kind of the introduction of the guide that maybe people weren't aware of, or just to remind that they're there for help. So number one, when you go to, I think it's page 1 or 2 in the guide, right as you just kind of come into the front cover, there's a really handy table there kind of on metric conversion. So if you're trying to do some conversions, whether it's, converting, centimeters to inches, or an area conversion, a volume conversion for a spray, for a certain spray, area that you're trying to cover, or a rate, or if you're trying to convert, some of those tougher calculations you're talking about, liters per hectare to gallons per acre, or some conversion for a spray job you're doing. This table should be a quick little, conversion that you can do to get a pretty accurate number, to lead you to hopefully to a good answer for whatever you're trying to convert to. As well, in the introduction of the guide, we do have kind of the safe use of pesticides kind of introduction. I just took a snapshot of it. There's a little bit more to the section than what I have there, but just it kind of goes over some of the safe use of the herbicides, fungicides, insecticides. It covers, the categories like, toxicity, flammable, corrosive, explosive. Again, just kind of the degrees of caution and safety to be there. It covers the hazard symbols that we have here of the different products. A little bit on of course, the LD50 of them, and a little bit on just, general safety, because we are handling and working with these products. And of course, they are still, dangerous and do need to be respected in some way as well. As well, keeping kind of with the safety aspect there as well. It covers protective clothing. So again, this table in the introduction, this is just a snapshot of it, but it just covers some of your protective clothing described, right? So you got equipment like coveralls here, and different types and how to wear it. Same thing with aprons, gloves, hats, boots as well. It doesn't other parts of the table are covering like your eyewear, your eye protection, your eye goggles, and other aspects of safety. But of course, if you're wondering about any PPE that you could be wearing, there will be a little bit here as well on how to wear it, and different types, and a little bit of explanation around it for your safety when you're working with handling, mixing these products. As well, we have a bit of in the introduction, a little paragraph or page there on mixing pesticides. So it does, of course, talk about like your mixing order and how to properly mix, if you're mixing pesticides. As well, we just talk about, the label statement now with the change at Health Canada's PMRA, where we like to see kind of the label statement, right, that this product may be tank mixed with a fertilizer supplement, or with registered pest control product. We like to see the kind of that statement on the label saying that it can be actively mixed with another product, just to follow kind of their tank use mixing policy that PMRA had. So of course, if you're wondering about ever tank mixing products, you can talk to one of your reps, of course, but the product label will of course have the information as well, whether it can or can't be tank mixed, or what is acceptable there to be tank mixing. But again, some good information there. As well, we have in the introduction, a section or part on sprayer cleaning. So, sometimes we run into producers who have maybe injured a crop due to some hang up in a tank, right? That maybe a product was let to sit overnight that it shouldn't have, or they maybe had rushed cleaning between different products. So again, it kind of outlines proper sprayer cleaning procedures, so we don't have any hang up in the sprayer tank or any of that the system or the booms or end caps, for example. As well, in the introduction there, it does cover different types of rinses a producer could do, or an applicator. Your ammonia rinse, excuse me, your fresh water rinse, as well as your detergent rinse, and just how to do that, and ways that you can prevent any chemical hang up in any parts of the sprayer, and what you can do to lower the risk of damaging a crop. I'll leave it at that. As well as we move through the introduction part of the guide, we also have the really handy the trade names, active ingredients, and formulations table. So this table basically, it lets out or shows you the different formulations here of the different pesticides, right? So we've got all the different abbreviations, and whether they're a wettable powder to a emulsifiable concentrate to a suspension emulsion. As well, it covers the different, I took from the herbicides part here, but it covers the different components of a herbicide in the formulation. So here at the top, we just have, I took from the very top a shot here. We've got, 2,4-D, amine 600 as kind of the first product or the first component to some of these herbicides. Some have multiple components, and some we have listed, I think it's up to 4 components for herbicides. So that kind of gives you just the details of what is in the herbicide. And then a product here, so that's the trade name or the herbicide, or it could be insecticide or fungicide, as well what company manufactures that product. So it could be a pretty quick way just to see, okay, what active ingredient or active ingredients are in this herbicide or pesticide, or what's the formulation. With there being lots of products on the market, it also helps you keep your head straight as to what's in what product, or the different formulations. So a very handy table to have and use as a quick reference as well. So focusing a little bit more on the weed control section, as you go into it, we do have a couple of tables I just wanted to bring some attention to that I think would be helpful for anybody who's wondering about herbicides, modes of action, maybe a little bit on potential herbicide damage. So one we do have is table 8. It's the herbicide site of action, a chemical family for resistant weed management. So it walks through the different herbicide groups. So I just took a snapshot here of course, the unknown group, group 0, and then of course group 1, so for grass control. And of course, the table just goes through the different active ingredients in the for each herbicide group, covers the different trade names. And then of course also mentions if it's in a co-packer or a premix, for example, just to give you an idea what herbicides or what different trade names that active ingredient is included in. As well, we have table 9, which is kind of the mode of action, site of uptake, and symptomology of different herbicide groups table. So again, there's a few more modes of action or herbicide groups that weren't included here, but I just took a snapshot from the beginning of the table. So we have the different herbicide groups, the different modes of action, whether they're systemic or contact, and then the site of uptake, whether it's maybe soil uptake or it's foliar through the upper foliage, through the leaves, stems, other plant parts. As well, what symptoms you might see, whether it's a grassy weed or a broadleaf weed, or maybe when you might see symptoms begin. So for a group 1 herbicide, we have a systemic mode of action, a foliar uptake. And of course, for grass weeds, we start to see reduced growth, yellowing of the growing point in about 1 to 3 weeks. And the newest leaf of the affected plant will easily pull out in about 3 to 5 days. So it gives you an idea when you'd see some symptomology, or when you'd expect some plant death, or if maybe you've got resistance there and you sprayed it and nothing is dying after 4 weeks. You can at least give you some ideas that maybe you should test their herbicide resistance to that patch or those plants that you sprayed. As well, it'll tell you if there's any symptomology on broadleafs, and of course, for a broadleaf crop or broadleaf weeds are tolerant to any of the group 1 herbicides. As well, just table 10 here in the weed control, kind of the introduction of the weed control section. It covers the different herbicide resistant weeds that we've confirmed resistance to. Sorry, it's herbicide resistant weeds in Western Canada, and kind of the confirmed herbicide group and kind of the location. So Of course, we've got the weeds here in alphabetical order. I just took a snapshot of it here. We've got Group 2 resistant cleavers confirmed in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and Group 4 resistant cleavers confirmed in Alberta, for example. Moving down the list, right, we have Group 9 resistant downy brome confirmed in Alberta. And of course, throughout the table, we've also just noted some of our neighboring, in this case, Montana, some of our neighbors that might have a resistance issue, because I mean, if it's in Montana, excuse me, we're liable to get it just based on geography and being very very close to them as well. So there's a lot more detail in the table. I just took a little bit of a snapshot of it just to show you and give you an example of it. It's something that might come in very useful when you're making a weed control plan or wondering about herbicide resistant weeds in Western Canada. As well, in the weed control section, we also have kind of the adjuvant table, and this basically covers, it covers kind of a little bit on what adjuvants are, what they do, whether they have a built-in formulation or it's an adjuvant that you add when you're filling the sprayer. But the table really just covers, again, it's a list of all the adjuvants that we have in Western Canada. So it has the adjuvant trade name. So typically what we would call them when we're buying them, when we're using them, the composition, so whatever it's composed of, the adjuvant type, whether it's an oil surfactant blend, a non-ionic surfactant, anionic, or an MSO blend, and then of course what registered herbicide or pesticide that adjuvant is registered with. So here we just kind of more of the some group ones that it's registered with bison, or we have clethodim there that can be used with a number of other adjuvants there at the bottom. So just excuse me here. But again, it can be a handy table to use if you're looking at adjuvants or what can or can't be combined or what can be used, just in case you maybe ran out of a certain adjuvant or you've got some extra left over you want to use up. As well, we move on here to the weed control tables, which can be very helpful when you're looking for, weed control in a certain crop, what can or can't be used, or what you can use to control a certain weed or weed species. So I just took a snapshot here of the lentil. Oh, also it has the pre-seed herbicides, right, too, that you can use. It has the the desiccant products, and as well it has a table on industrial vegetation management products you can use in non-crop areas. So it's quite a large section because the guide is getting quite large, but it covers quite a fair bit on what you can use on what crops. I wanted to just bring attention here to I think it's the pulse tables, pea and lentil tables that we had a couple of years ago had kind of split out. We kind of separated the pre-emergent herbicides with residual control, as I've shown here, from the post-emergent herbicides. I think there was just some questions and demand around that, just to separate them out for more efficient use by our users. Of course, in this table, you've got your different herbicide that can be used, pre-emergent or post-emergent. The page number in the 2025 guide where it's located, the herbicide mode of action, what herbicide group is in that herbicide, depending on the active ingredients. Then of course your annual weed species here, and whether the dot is control or suppression, or you've got to look at a superscript that might have a warning. Maybe it doesn't include a certain variety, or it's a limited control, or for whatever reason. So, but lots of information in the tables, and we update those every year just to keep them accurate as well. What else do I have here? So in the weed control section, we also have the special weed problem section. So this is, again, it's a section that's been in the guide for a very long time, and we update it when we see a need to. It kind of just updates, controller recommendations on how to deal with some very problem weeds. So this will be focused on, I would say, noxious weeds, prohibited, noxious, and nuisance weeds that are very invasive or very hard to control. So, one I highlighted here was absinthe that we deal with a lot in rangelands and non-crop areas. And it gives some recommendations here around different products. So 2,4-D, the proper timing, the proper rate. Casseron, dicamba, some of our IVM herbicides, Reclaim, Clearview, and Sightline, and Restore and Milestone, of course, A lot of these are only registered for pasture applications or rangeland or non-crop areas. Of course, the appropriate rate or the appropriate timing, when the plant is actively growing, or some other details around, when the best time is to control that weed. Other problem weeds that you would see in here, like leafy spurge, your knapweed, some of those very hard to control problem weeds that we deal with that never seem to go away on the prairies here. But again, the section that if you're dealing with a troublesome weed, it might have some extra information if you're looking, or maybe you can't find any answer you're looking for in other sections of the guide. You might have the opportunity to find some information in this section in the weed control part of the guide. As well, I wanted to also just bring some attention to the recropping restrictions for residual herbicides table. And this is more as we've had some dry years. And of course, you hear of some potential carryover damage on a crop, or somebody was hesitant if they could replant, a crop based on a herbicide application. This table gives you an idea of your kind of your cropping restrictions based on, one being if it can be grown the year after the crop, or maybe it can be grown if you can have have that certain crop grown after that herbicide application the year after, or if it's down to days or months after application here is indicated on the table. Or maybe it's multiple years if there's, I'm seeing 2 years here for some products, or there are no restrictions. So again, I can just give you an idea of what potential issues there could be if you want to grow a certain crop after a certain herbicide application. But it makes you aware of some issues as well. Of course, you always have your chemical reps and your agronomist or myself to talk to if you're not sure of something as well. So excuse me. With that, I also have just one more table I wanted to bring up. It's the I call it the rainfast table. Again, this is a snapshot of it. There's more categories, there's more required intervals in it than what I have here. But it gives you an idea, of course, if you've got rain coming, what you can expect for required interval to still get adequate weed control, or when you might get non-adequate weed control if you sprayed distinct, for example, or glufosinate, and it rained within half an hour. Well, you're probably going to see some less weed control versus if you spray diquat, it's got a very short rain fast of 15 minutes. So it can give you an idea, as well as to, the different products and when rain can hamper weed control, or what you can do about it as well, and following up with an agronomist or one of your crop protection people if in case you're into a situation. But it can be a very informative table. With that, I just want to cover, I think there's 6 or 7 new product pages in the herbicide section of the guide. I just wanted to cover a few of those products that we added to the guide this year. There are some other products that were added kind of more in the generic section that are just added to that section, and we went through the labels and changed out the differences, or made note of what differences there are. But I felt it was just appropriate to bring some attention to the 6 or 7 new product pages in the herbicide section. So to start here, excuse me, we have Axial Max. It's a new in-crop herbicide from Syngenta. So it's a herbicide for the for in-crop spraying and spring wheat and barley. It's a pre-packaged tank mix of Axial, Extreme, and Talinor. And just to break that down a bit further, I just included the different herbicide groups that are in that product. So there's the group 1, the pinoxidin, the group 4, the fluoxapyr component, the group 6, the bromoxidil component, and the group 27, the bicyclopyrone. So that makes up that product. I would say to go to the product page in the guide, or the Syngenta website or Syngenta rep for more of the details on it. But I just wanted to highlight, bring a little bit of attention to our new product pages in the guide for 2025. Next, we have Barricade M. This is an FMC product. It's an in-crop herbicide for weed control in spring wheat, durum wheat, winter wheat, barley, and oats. It's a pre-packaged tank mix of Barricade SG, Perimeter 2, and the LBOG MCPA Ester 600 or Dama MCPA Ester. When you break down the different herbicide groups, it's got 2 components. It's got a group 2 and a group 4 in it. The group 2 component is the thifensulfuron and the tribenuron. And the group 4 components in there are the fluoxapyr and the MCPA. So that is Barricade M. We move on here to Enlist 1, which is a Corteva product. This is basically an in-crop herbicide for weed control in the Enlist E3 soybeans, Enlist corn. Then, of course, for in-crop weed control in spring wheat, winter wheat, durum wheat, barley, and fall rye. I'd encourage you to go to the label or the product page in the guide just for the details there on timing and rates. But it's really just a 2,4-D, a Group 4 herbicide for Enlist 1. As well, we have Extinguish XL. This is a Corteva product. It is basically another in-crop herbicide for weed control in spring wheat, winter wheat, durum wheat, and barley. And it's got Group 2 and Group 4 components. The Group 2 component there is the flurazolum. The Group 4 is the haloxifin, and the 2,4-D. Excuse me here, my voice is just giving me some trouble. We've also got Husky Pre here. This is a new pre-seed herbicide, and product page from Bayer Crop Science. So it's a pre or post-seeding herbicide, but prior to emergence for weed control in spring wheat, winter wheat, and durum wheat, barley, and triticale. And of course, Husky Pre has a Group 6 component, that's the bromoxynil, the Group 7 component, the pyrosulfatol, and of course, it's to be taken mixed with glyphosate. So, your Group 9 glyphosate product there as well. We have a couple more here to cover. We have Syngenta's new herbicide, Talinor. It's a Syngenta herbicide. It's for in-crop weed control in spring wheat, durum wheat, and barley. It's got, of course, the Group 6 component, the bromoxynil, and the Group 27 component, the bicycropyrone as well. Excuse me, my voice is just giving some problem with pronouncing there. And I believe our last product, new product page, I wanted just to bring some awareness to is Vanquish. Again, it's another Syngenta product, but it's an industrial vegetation management herbicide. So these herbicides, of course, are not for our typical grain crops or our farmland. This is more for non-crop areas such as roadsides, hydro, pipeline, and railway rights of ways. For weed control at airports, military bases, wasteland, and turf. So that's what kind of the label registration is for Vanquish, and it's really just a Group 4, a dicamba product. But of course, I'd encourage you to go to the product page of the product label just to get the more in-depth details on the different rates and the formulation for it as well, because it's only for industrial use for weed control, not for any of our cropland uses. Okay, a couple more things to cover in the weed control section here. Of course, I mentioned we have several new generic herbicides we added to the guide this year as well. Just want to caution you and just make sure you remember that not all generic herbicides have the same label as that proprietary product, so there might be some different use limitations there. So, just saying, make sure don't assume. Make sure you know what use limitations you have or what herbicide can be used for what use. That's all we're trying to get at there. Really want to just remind users of the guide to please read the product labels as well. The label is kind of the law that we follow. So, read the product labels, know them, understand them. Make sure you're knowing and understanding what you're reading in the guide as well, because that is really the law when we're talking about, following the labels and weed control and following the rules around how to properly use these herbicides and all products in the guide really. With that, I also just going to remind you that there is the plant growth regulator section. Of course, we have two products in there. Whoops. We have Manipulator 620 and Modus. So again, two of our only PGRs in that section, as well as section covers, pardon me, what a plant growth regulator is, how they work, the different types of them. And of course, those product pages will cover the different details on rates and staging, et cetera, et cetera. So with that covers the plant growth regulator section. I also just want to take a moment to talk about our survey on the guide to crop protection that we have out. And I believe that at the end of the webinar, they will also be sending more information on this, but I wanted just to take a second to talk about it. The survey closes on April 30th, so about a week. We're really just trying to get information from users, so producers, agronomists, anybody who uses the guide to crop protection. We're just trying to understand how users use it, right? what do you like about it, what don't you like about it, just to give us some information and feedback on the guide so we can make informed decisions on the document and make sure we're still, keeping the purpose of the document, in our minds forward, and not deviating from that, because the guide is getting larger and more complex. We want to make sure we're still keeping on track with it, and recognizing, with how people use it, different uses change as well. But we just want to make good informed decisions around the guide. So I'd encourage you to take 5 minutes and fill out the survey QR code here. There will be, I think, a link sent at the end of the webinar as well. With that, I will just take a second to put up my contact information in case you ever need to get a hold of me. Any questions about the webinar, the guide, or throughout the growing season. My cell phone number and email are there, and I welcome your questions or comments at any time. So. With that, thanks for your attention, and I think I will then move it on to the next presenter just to keep the webinar flowing here.
Awesome. Thanks, Cory. Okay, if you've got any questions for Cory, like we said, just put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the very end of the webinar. Our next speaker is Dr. Alireza Akhavan. Alireza is the Provincial Plant Disease Specialist for the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture. He holds master's and doctorate degrees in plant pathology and has led several notable projects. Previously, Alireza taught at the University of Alberta and worked with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. We're ready when you are, Alireza.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Can you confirm that you're hearing me and you see my screen in the right shape?
Yep, looks great.
Oh, that's great. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to start with the QR code again on the Guide to Crop Protection survey, and further echoing what Cory just mentioned, that you please participate in this survey, which is very important for us if you are using the guide. And it seems that at the end of the webinar, you will also get the link and everything you need to just participate in the survey. Again, as Ashley indicated, my name is Alireza Akhavan. I am the Provincial Plant Disease Specialist at the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture. And today I will be guiding you through the disease control section of the 2025 edition of the Guide to Crop Protection. So if you use the web version of the guide, you will be able to access the disease section within the complete version, or you can download the disease section separately. But please note that the seed treatment portion within the disease section addresses both diseases and insects, as seed treatment concept apply to both pest groups. If you use the hard copy of the guide, then you can access the disease control section starting from page 528 with an introduction from page 528 to 535, and followed by foliar fungicide section, which includes tables and pages, and then seed treatment section, which also includes tables and pages. And as indicated, please note that the seed treatment portion within the disease section addresses both diseases and insects, as seed treatment concept apply to both pest groups again. So foliar fungicide directory is on page 6 and 7 of the guide. The list of the fungicides have been organized alphabetically, and it includes both generic names and the proprietary names or brand names. The same applies to seed treatment directory, which is on page 8 of the guide. Within the guide, plant disease control, as mentioned, starts from page 528 with a short and sweet introduction. Within the introduction, you can quickly find some concise information on integrated plant disease management for cereal leaf diseases, ergot, fusarium head blight, late blight of potatoes, different canola diseases, pulse crop diseases, followed by a small paragraph on the effects of weather. The pathogen resistance, or actually resistance to fungicide, the pathogen resistance or insensitivity management has some very important tips on how to delay fungicide resistance against these valuable fungicides. So I urge everyone using the guide to review at least that section on pathogen resistance management and how we can delay fungicide resistance development. So pages 532 to 534 has the list of the fungicide group-based fungicide groups based on biochemical mode of action or FRAC grouping for both foliar fungicides and the fungicidal components present in certain seed treatment products. So that's also an important part of the guide, which will be helping when we try to rotate to a different group of fungicides in terms of their mode of actions. Then we have foliar fungicide tables. Of course, if you want to use the guide for disease management, you can identify your crop and disease of concern. Then you can use these fungicide tables for specific product suggestions or recommendations. Tables are categorized by crop, like potatoes, wheat, barley, pulses, etc. And disease is listed in columns and fungicide in rows. So review the corresponding pages for sure for application timing and other detailed information, and always confirm with current product labels. Foliar fungicide tables start with potatoes, then for wheat and barley, followed by tables for oat, rye, and triticale as one table, and then for millet, corn, and canary seed as the next table. Then for pulse crops, and then we have oilseed crops, and finally we have the table for special crops and forages, which every year we review with our minor use lead to make sure they are updated as well. So following tables on fungicide, foliar fungicide product pages start. Typically, we have two types of product pages. Like one type is something like what you see on the left side of the slide. So these type of the products have only one single priority product. For example, Acapella fungicide is a product developed by Corteva AgriScience, and it is a group 11 fungicide containing picoxystrobin as its active ingredient. If you look at the right side of the slide, you can see the second type of pages, that they are generic pages which have multiple products under them. All of them have the same active ingredients. Like azoxystrobin is the generic name for the active ingredient found in multiple products from various manufacturers. So regardless of the type of the product page, whether it's a single product page or a generic page with multiple products, you should be able to find the name of the product or products, formulation, and the uses, including registered crops, diseases, rates, and timing, as well as further information on water volume that you need to use, how the product works, tank mixes and restrictions on different categories, and also hazard rating applicable to certain products. So briefly, to use the document to find fungicides, first you need to identify your crop and disease of concern, then use the fungicide tables for specific product suggestions, which are categorized again by crops such as potatoes, wheat, barley, pulses, as I showed you, with diseases listed in columns and fungicide in rows. Then you review the corresponding pages of the guide for detail on application timing and other information. And then finally, you always confirm with current product labels and make sure everything is right. So this update for today for foliar fungicide section also includes products that removed from the 2025 edition, new product pages, and significant changes in uses for foliar fungicides, while it does not include less comprehensive changes in uses, because there were very many. There were about 100. There were about 1,000 different changes only in the foliar fungicide section. So we only limit ourselves to main changes, and we don't cover minor corrections or edits compared to the 2024 edition. So for 2025, Cozavet DF Edge, which was registered on Field P for control of powdery mildew, has been removed from the guide as there was no inventory for at least 2 years. As far as products added to the guide, we have in the current version one new product page for a new product named Gauntlet added to the 2025 version. Then we have a new generic page with two similar co-pack products, Spaxer and Viking Vasa, both added in 2025 but have same active ingredients. Also, with arrival of two products in 2025 with the same active ingredients as products already in the guide in 2024, two of the brand name pages converted to generic pages for active ingredients fluazinum and pyroclostrobin and tebuconazole. Also, for other products were added to existing generic pages in the guide. These include Duplex, Rambler, Taj, and Viking proteoconazole. So starting with Gauntlet, developed by New Farm Agriculture, is a product belonging to fungicide groups 3 and 11. It contains azoxystrobin and proteoconazole SC. Gauntlet is effective in managing diseases in canola, such as Alternaria black spot, and also provides suppression of Sclerotinia stem rot. Additionally, it is beneficial for lentil crops targeting multiple diseases, especially anthracnose. So again, two new co-pack products, both arrived at the same time in 2025. These were Spaxer and Viking Vasa. And because they arrived at the same time, still we needed a generic page. So we had the generic page on their names, proteoconazole and pyroclostrobin. So this page established for them. And of course, Viking Vasa is from Viking Crop Protection Partners Incorporation, and Spaxer is from AgroCity, distributed by AgroCity, but it's from New Agco Incorporation. So the both co-packs are for use in managing multiple cereal and pulse crop diseases. And again, for detailed information, uses, crops, diseases, application, you need to please review the pages in the guide. So we had in the past Syngenta we had the Syngenta product Allegro 500F in 2024 and before that as a separate page in those edition. But with arrival of a new product called Force AG with exact same active ingredient, the page now was converted to generic page under generic name fluazinum in 2025. And these two products have uses on potatoes, dry beans, and soybean disease management systems. Similarly, we had in the past from AgroCity a product called Tornado Pro, and it was a co-pack, and it was a single page in last edition. But with arrival of a new product, Viking Drawback, with exact same active ingredient, the page was converted this year to a generic page under generic name pyroclostrobin and tebuconazole, with uses on wheat and barley disease management systems. And again, for detailed information, you please review the page in the guide. There were also new products added to existing generic pages in 2025, which included Duplex. And Duplex was added to the page proteoconazole and tebuconazole generic page, and it has uses on wheat and barley and oat disease management systems. Other new products added to existing generic pages in 2025 included three new products, Rambler, Taj, and Viking proteoconazole, which added to proteoconazole generic page. As Cory mentioned, for herbicides, just remember that not all generic fungicides also have the same label as the first priority product. Some may have different use limitations, and as Cory mentioned, please read product labels, and again, please note that the label is the law. And again, Touch is from Share the Crop Chem, and Rambler is from New Agco Incorporated. This but it gets distributed, but AgroCity and Viking proteoconazole, of course, is from Viking Crop Production Partners Incorporation. So we are done with changes at the product level, but there were significant changes in currently present products in the guide. So another significant change in 2025 is indeed the label expansion for Zetico PRM. The page as shown here in this slide is from last year edition of the guide, which uses on lentil and canola, while this is the page in this slide for this year for Zetico PRM, which expanded. So the uses now are expanded on a range of pulse crops as well as canola, wheat, and barley. And this will be a very valuable product because it has a fungicide group 21 active ingredient. And I guess if we review the page on how to delay development of insensitivity against these valuable fungicides, that would be very helpful for their longevity over time. So this was about Zetico PRM, which had like the most expanded label compared to last year, but there were also other products that they have additional uses this year. Maxentis is one of them, which has new uses added compared to the last year page, and now it has blackleg for canola on the label. Again, detailed information because of the interest of the time. We need to just review the pages on our own. So similarly for Miravis era, it has new uses added compared to the last year page pertaining to management of fusarium head blight in rye, oat, and triticale, which added this year. Also, please note that there is a note now in the guide for some of the products. The note reads as what you see highlighted on this slide, and it relates to the fact of understanding maximum residual limit for some of the uses. There's a webinar on 2025 product advisory that you can attend for further information in just 2 days on April 2024. For further information, if you go to keepitkilling.ca, if I just click on that, it opens the Keep It Killing website. And of course, the first page shows the 2025 product advisory webinar in just 2 days on April 24 that I encourage everyone to attend because that has important tips in terms of marketing and other consideration. So moving on to seed treatment section, we move now to seed treatment section and briefly touch base on some key points. The seed treatment tables start right after the last page of the foliar fungicide section. And please note that the seed treatment section again relates to the management of both diseases and insect pests and depends on the product may be applicable to either or both of diseases and insects. So briefly, to use the document to find a suitable seed treatment product, you may be able to first identify your crop and pest of concern, then use the seed treatment tables for specific product suggestions, which are again similar to the foliar fungicides, are categorized by crops such as wheat, barley, pulses, etc., with diseases and insect pests listed in columns and products in rows. Review the corresponding pages in the guide for detailed information and always confirm with the current product labels. So there are multiple tables like we had for foliar fungicides, like the first table was for barley, rye, and wheat, and then for other crops like buckwheat grasses, millet, rye, sorghum, triticale, and other crops, oilseed crops, for chickpea, faba bean, for other legumes, and for soybean, for corn, for potato, and also we have a table for potato post harvest. And then after those tables, we get to the seed treatment product pages. So this following tables, seed treatment product pages start, which has the detailed information about the product, similar to what we just had for foliar fungicide pages. But products here may be applicable to either or both diseases and insects, but they cover all the information that we just touched base on when we talked about foliar fungicide pages. So seed treatment section, what is included in this update for you? Products removed from the 2025 edition, new product pages, and significant changes in use, but we didn't include any less comprehensive changes in uses because there were very many. And also we didn't include minor corrections and minor edits compared to the previous edition, just to the interest of the time. The only product removed from the guides, the seed treatment section in 2025 was Ensure cereal, as the product discontinued. But please note that we still have the Ensure cereal FX4 in the document, and please note that the two products are different. So Ensure cereal FX4 is still in the guide, but Ensure cereal was discontinued. So it was removed from the guide seed treatment section. Intego Sweet Cereal OF from New Farm Agriculture added to the guide. It's a new product for the seed treatment section for uses on both diseases and wireworms management. So again, for detailing for everything, I have 1 minute left from my 20 minutes time allocation. So if you want more detailed information, please review each page. So as part of significant changes on seed treatment products, we can mention adding separation of grasshoppers in small grains for Lumi via CPL. And again, I am a plant pathologist, so as far as any questions on the seed treatment products pertaining to insect pests, I will lead them up to my colleague, Dr. James Tansey. Another significant change, again related to insects in relation to seed treatment, was adding mustard to Buteo Start for management of phyllo beetles, and it was another change that happened this year in seed treatment section. Significant addition related to tank mixes for seed treatments includes the Belmont now can be mixed with Rancona Trio for control of early season root rot by Aphanomyces eutychus during plant emergence and early crop establishment in pea and lentil fields, provided that low disease pressure exists. So multiple important tank mix comments was added for Rancona Trio, mainly in relation to different insect pest management. So I recommend you to review these new tank mixes for Rancona Trio, which added to the current version of guide this year. So my time is over, so I would be very happy to address questions at the end of the webinar after the insect section. And that was my last slide. Thank you very much for the for participating in the webinar and for your attention.
Great, thank you so much, Alireza. Again, if you've got questions, you can throw them in the chat and we will take them at the very end here. So our final speaker is Dr. James Tansey. James has been the Provincial Insect Vertebrate Pest Management Specialist with the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture since January 2018, addressing insect and vertebrate pest issues across the province. Before this role, he worked as a research scientist in the pharmaceutical industry. His academic background includes doctoral research on field crops entomology at the University of Alberta and a master's degree in biological control of weeds, along with experience in regulatory affairs. I will pass it off to you, James.
Thanks, Ashley. And thank you to the previous presenters, Cory and Alireza, and everyone else who's offered up information. So I have a fair number of slides to go through, so I'll just get rolling. As mentioned before, there is a survey on the guided crop protection, and I enthusiastically encourage people to sign up for that and provide us some feedback on the direction of the guided crop protection. So the guide probably doesn't need much more description than that, as well as the online guide. So for those who are not familiar, we do have an online guide linked on the provincial website. So you can either download the entire thing or particular sections as PDF and search through with that. It can be a real convenience. So some important considerations to inform control decisions are included in the insecticide section or the insect control section. So these include information on current trends, control and survey results, and this is through a link to the Western Forum on Pest Management. So I encourage people to take a look at the Western Forum on Pest Management. That is a collection of all of the pest issues. So that is provincial pest reports as well as survey maps. And I would also encourage people to take a look at Prairie Pest Monitoring Network. So we contribute to this, and as do the Western provinces, the other Western provinces. And there is a great deal of valuable information through both resources. So very important to consider with insect control decisions, or with any pest decision really, is economic thresholds, and we'll have a little description of some of those and provide an example. Just touching on that, there are different ways of evaluating thresholds. Some of these are based on population densities that you can evaluate through sweep sampling or through visual counts, and some are based on defoliation. So a really good example of that would be canola seedlings, where you're looking at the percent defoliation to inform when to pull the trigger on the application of a foliar insecticide. So pre-harvest intervals, of course, are tremendously important, and these vary by products. So the residue time, systemic versus non-systemic, can have a pretty profound impact on pre-harvest intervals. And also provided in the guide are some field scouting tips, and these are going to vary by different pests and the way they distribute themselves within fields. Of course, some pests are going to overwinter relatively successfully in different areas. Some move in from outside of the field. Some are excellent flyers. Some move by walking and crawling. So that can inform your decision on how to sample for those pests and how you can evaluate your economic thresholds based on that. So some tips on that in the guide. Also included in the guide are hazard ratings for bees, so that European honeybees are obviously very important pollinator species in Western Canada and really worldwide. So there can be great differences in toxicity of various products to bees. So the different products will fall into different hazard categories. Differences in residual times, and I've only presented the least hazardous here, but there is a full table based on different hazards to honeybees. Ideally, what we're trying to do is reduce bee losses from insecticide applications. So timing can be very important, so as not to expose bees during times of flowering when they're visiting fields, and just to be aware of that. So just a quick description of some of the least hazardous insecticides to bees. We have some biologicals in dipel and nolabate. Ecobran is a bait, so the bees would actually have to directly consume the brand bait. This is a product that's intended for grasshoppers. Very unlikely that a bee would take that up. And a product like Coragen Max or Coragen or Shenzi has an active ingredient, chlorantraniliprole, and there are differences in the receptor site where this works. It's called a ryanodine receptor, and there are different states of that receptor in different insect groups. So the Hymenoptera, or the ants, bees, and wasps, have a different form than grasshoppers or leps do. So caterpillars. So caterpillars very sensitive, grasshoppers very sensitive, bees not so sensitive. So this can have a tremendous impact on the impact of some of these modes of action, some of these chemistries on specific insect groups, including pollinators like bees. So insecticide resistance, Alireza touched on fungicide resistance, and Cory touched on herbicide resistance. The same sort of thinking applies to insecticide resistance. So really, what you want to do is rotate modes of action, so that is reduce the exposure of a particular generation of insects, or of an individual generation of insects, to the same mode of action with repeated applications. Really, what you're doing is weeding out members of that population that express susceptibility, and the potential for the development of insects that are expressing resistance to a specific mode of action. These can reproduce, increase, and then you can get population-wide expression of resistance. So to inform that, insecticides are grouped in different IRAC categories. So that is the Insecticide Resistance Action Committee, and this is what that group means. So a 1A is very similar to a 1B, so similar modes of action. 3A and 1B, totally different modes of action. So group 1 insecticides are affecting acetylcholinesterase. Group 3 insecticides are affecting calcium channeling. So 2 totally different modes of action. You should not see cross resistance with these. So this is a good way to recommend rotation of different modes of action. So what we've done here is included, I haven't included all the groups. There are actually now 30 different groups. So it makes for a very long list. But included, for the primaries here, and the chemical group that's listed under that particular mode of action, and the trade names, active ingredients, and the mode of entry into the insect associated with these. So can really inform resistance management. So as I mentioned before, repeated use of insecticides with the same mode of action. So it doesn't matter about the product. So let's go back to this one. So if we're looking at pyrethroids, you can see that there's a whole bunch of different products that are listed as pyrethroids. So these all have, you can see different active ingredients, deltamethrin versus cypermethrin versus lambda versus permethrin. All of these have the same mode of action. So consider these for resistance management. If you were to switch from desis to ship, you're still selecting for that same mode of action. So a resistance to that same mode of action. So consider that with your resistance management decisions. So use insecticides only when the economic threshold for a pest has been surpassed. So this does require a certain amount of tolerance of insect pests. So low numbers, typically not damaging, and in some cases, like in the case of lygus bug, and there is some evidence for Delia root maggot, where you can get compensatory regrowth. So you can actually get a tiny yield hit with small amounts of insect feeding, so you don't want to control them until they get to high levels. I don't want to say that's the case for all insects where you're going to get that compensatory regrowth, but keep in mind the economic threshold is meant to offer efficacious and economic control of insect pests, so you're not pulling the trigger prematurely and not missing the bus on potentially controlling a growing population of insects. So rotate between insecticide mode of action, as I mentioned, and keep accurate records so that you know what's been used in previous years. And then you can rotate based on that as well. So field scouting, we offer some tips associated with that, and mention thresholds for specific insect pests. So just as an example here, we have it for a number of different crop groups. And in this case, this is field scouting in alfalfa for sapper fluid feeders. So lygus, alfalfa, alfalfa plant bug, and typical damage, when and how to monitor, and economic thresholds in specific crops for that within that group. So to that, a lot of detail associated with that. I realize maybe this section gets missed a bit, but I encourage people to take a look at that. I think there's a lot of excellent information on controlling insects, both in the short term and the immediate term, and also in the long term to prevent the emergence of resistance. So we list products by crop and group those by specific pests. So these are according to the labels. We also include some cultural control where available. In the case of root maggots in canola, there are no products registered for their control. So really the only thing that you can do for those is cultural control. So that is increased seeding rate, increased row spacing, etc. For products or for pests where products are registered, these are listed. And you can see here both seed treatments and foliar sprays, and a number of different products are listed for a number of different pests. We do have some exceptions where an individual pest in an individual crop, barley thrips, for example, will only have one product registered for it, and you need to consider that. I mean, your options for resistance management are non-existent in that case, and that can put population managers or growers in a difficult position. So grasshopper management, we have a little section based on that for roadsides, headlands, and summer fallow. And this also includes the application of strips, which comes in a later section. So you can get efficacious control in these environments by laying strips of insecticide application and leaving blank areas. The work has been done on a limited number of insecticide modes of action, primarily carbaryl, as far as what's registered in Canada. So take that with a small grain of salt, but for carbaryl applications, that can be an excellent suggestion for that. So once again, a number of different products registered. We have the application rates, pre-harvest intervals, etc. And mammalian toxicity is also included, so you get an idea of what sort of immediate hazard this might represent to an applicator. And as Cory mentioned before, PPE, look at the label. I mean, the label is the law. There will be PPE requirements and recommendations on the label. Please follow those. Keep yourself safe with some of these. Some of these have mammalian toxicity, and caution at all times with these. So we have a section on insects and stored grain, as well as some sampling tools, cleaning equipment, prevention, including cleaning equipment, inspection, treatment, drying and cooling, monitoring, and some of the tools associated with monitoring, including bin probes and probe traps, as pictured here. And some notable insects. This is not a comprehensive list of the insects that may occur in stored products or stored grain, but some of the more conspicuous ones. And pictured top here is a sawtooth green beetle. This is a cosmopolitan pest, can also occur in Saskatchewan, so it's one to keep an eye out for. And below is a soakid, or what's called depends on where you find them. So if you find them in a library, they're called book lice. They happily eat the glue in book bindings and can be a real problem there. If you find them in the woods, they're called bark lice, can be the same species. It's a relatively diverse group. All of them are called soakids or book lice, bark lice. These can be problem secondary pests. So we got primary pests, feed directly on the grain. Secondary pests feed on spoiled grain and the fungi that's associated with that. So some products registered for their control. We have some recommendations for those. And once again, it's not a comprehensive list in the guide associated with all of the stored products pests. There are other resources. Please contact me if you would like reference to those. But we do have some reference to control methods for stored products pests. And product pages. These are associated with field crops, and we have each of the products registered and marketed in Western Canada associated with field crops. These are listed under the product name typically, if there's only one product with a particular active. If there are multiple products with the same active, then we'll list it under the active ingredient name. So if there's any confusion associated with that, and I'll give a couple of examples just to clarify that. We'll include the formulation as well as application method, an indication of how it works, so contact ingestion, anti-feeding effects, etc. Restrictions by crop, grazing intervals if applicable, pre-harvest intervals, re-entry intervals, and remember some of these have pretty profound mammalian toxicity, so you really want to pay attention to those re-entry intervals, as well as buffer zones for aquatic and terrestrial habitats. There are precautions associated with export considerations, as well as storage of the product and some environmental hazards. And as I mentioned, bees already, and aquatic systems, and anything else that might be pertinent to these products. So just as an example, this is one that's listed under the active ingredient. This is acetamiprid. You can see listed in the insecticide group 4A, so that will inform your resistance management decisions. A number of different products, or a couple of different products, pardon me, listed for a couple of different companies, a couple of crops registered, and specific insects associated with this, as well as application methods. So we got ground and aerial application recommendations for those. A little bit further down on the product page, we'll have the how it works, as well as restrictions associated with that, so including pre-harvest interval, re-entry intervals, and buffer zones associated with that, so as well as some precautions. Including storage recommendations for these. So these are going to vary by product. Some are more sensitive to cold, some are more sensitive to heat, and recommendations for the proper storage of these products will be indicated in the guide. So environmental hazards. So as I mentioned before, bees can be very sensitive to some of these insecticides. So you need to be aware of the potential for drift and overspray application during when pollinators are active, etc., and potential effects on aquatic organisms and others. And also included a hazard warning. So these will vary by product, and as I mentioned before, some can have notable mammalian toxicity and other environmental impacts that we'll try to illustrate here in the product pages. So some changes for the 2025 guide. This is relatively quick, but I'll try to indicate some of these. We do have a correction for carbine and belief. The alfalfa grown for seed statement was not included in last year's guide. It is included in this guide. Always consult the label before application. The label is the law and the final word on this. So we have corrected this statement in the carbine belief page. We have some new products. Here we have a couple of deltamethrin products, that is Decimate and Rauma. These are generics and should be as efficacious as the other deltamethrin products for the control of specific insects. There will be some differences between label statements with specific pests labeled for specific products, and we've made an effort to indicate this in the guide. So please consult that. But once again, the label is the law. So always default to the label, and always consult the label before applying a product. So just a look at some of the insects that these new generics are registered for. Rauma and Decimate, as mentioned before. European corn borer, which we don't have a lot of corn acres in the province, but they have been affected by European corn borer in recent years, and so this is an option for those. So these are the adults. European corn borer, obviously the adults are not the damaging state. It's going to be the caterpillars or the larvae. Flea beetles in canola, rapeseed, and mustard. Oh, pardon me. I have a tickle in my throat. Apparently, maybe there's something going around the office now. Colorado potato beetle in potatoes as well. We'll have a brief discussion on mustard. There's a little bit of confusion about where mustard lives right now. The difference between condiment mustard and oilseed mustard, and we have a brief discussion on that. You will see differences in buffer zones with the different deltamethrin products. So please consult the guide. And once again, the label is your final word on that. So European corn borer, once they get into the stem, the jig is up. So you want to apply these while they're still larvae. Here's a little egg mass, that's A. This is a relatively mature larva. They will, by this stage, they're at least thinking about tunneling into that stem. So if you're seeing foliar damage like this on corn, you're going to want to consider application of insecticide if the damage is significant. Another new product is Shenzi. So these Coragen and Coragen Max used to have their own page. It's now listed under chlorantraniliprole because of the introduction of Shenzi, which is a very similar product. So we do have tank mix statements as well, and Cory made mention of this. So we have this relatively wordy generic statement, and this takes the place of specific statements unless there is a specific statement on the label of the tank mix partners. So if there is a statement on the tank labels of the tank mix partners, we can include this in the guide, and it will be mentioned here as in the case of Pounce. But if that statement does not exist, then we have to default to this generic statement. So be aware of that, and once again, the label is the law. So defer to that. Here's one where it's listed by the trade name. This is an imidacloprid product, so a neonicotinoid group 4A. This is a foliar for potatoes for several different pests in that crop, and this is potato aphid pictured below. And what we have a new recommendation for this, or an updated recommendation for resistance management. Do not apply following soil in-furrow or seed treatment following application of another group 4 insecticide. Sulfoxaflor, this is another listed by product name. So this is a 4C. It's a different subgroup from the 4As. So the neonicotinoids are 4As. This is a 4C. Structural differences, same receptor site. Oh, pardon me. Some update to the restrictions associated with this. Just an update in the wording and with the volumes. So please consult that if you intend to use this product. Spinetoram, once again listed under the trade name for this. This is a group 5 to inform your resistance management decisions, and an update to the pre-harvest statement for this product. There's some new products, including biologicals. So BioTitan has been included, and this is Bovaria bassiana and a specific strain of it. Indicates the concentration of the conidia in there, and this is what a Colorado potato beetle looks like if it's dying of Bovaria bassiana. The fungal hyphae have worked all the way through this animal's body, and you can see the fruiting bodies on this beetle. This beetle will not get better, chicken soup or no. He's a goner. So new product for potatoes, Colorado potato beetle, another biological. This one's been on the books for a little while for these purposes, but we've had a new insect added to it, fall armyworm, and this is pictured below. So this is not Bovaria bassiana. This is another organism called Bacillus thuringiensis, and this is the BTK or the Christaki subspecies. So has really excellent efficacy on leps. So that is caterpillars. Kills the heck out of Lepidoptera, but pretty good group specificity. Shouldn't impact other insect groups because some of the issues with specificity of this bacterium to the insect gut. So there will be specific receptor sites on the insect gut that alter their sensitivity to these. So one of the another change to the buffer zone statement for imidan. So this is Fosmet A1B. So once again, a different group that can inform control decisions and resistance management decisions, and just an update to the buffer zone statement on this one. Discontinued products include a dimethoate product. So that is Saigon 400 EC is still in the guide. It is being discontinued, and stores will be used up. So we've included it in the guide for this year, but once stores are used up, that is next year. It won't be included anymore. So there has been an update to the pre-harvest interval for Saigon 480 400, and please note that. And Clutch, which is a clothianidin product, another 4A or a neonicotinoid insecticide, has been discontinued. So it is no longer in the guide. As is one of the malathion products. So there is still the Loveland malathion 85E, but IPCO malathion is not being marketed, so it has been removed from the guide. And finally, mustard. So there is a little bit of, it's a little messy. So most of the mustard, 99% of the mustard grown in the province is for condiments, but oilseed mustard is also grown. So that is canola quality mustard. Pardon me, both are harvested for the seed. One goes to the condiment market, one goes to the oilseed market. But you should note that the chlorantraniliprole products are listed under the oilseed group, so are not permitted specifically on the condiment mustard, as are the deltamethrin products, Desis 100 EC, Polisi or Palachi, I'm never certain how to pronounce that one, and Advantage deltamethrin say specifically oilseed mustard. And for the lambda cyhalothrin products, Silencer Matador, Zivada, and La Bamba, not permitted on condiment mustard. And you can see the Volium Express, which is a mix of lambda cyhalothrin and a diamide, a group 28 insecticide. You can see an asterisk for that. There is an error in the guide where condiment mustard is listed as permitted. Always check the label. This is not a permitted use for this product. Please keep that in mind if you're considering using this product on mustard. So once again, always check the guide. Some products don't specify or differentiate between condiment and oilseed mustard, and these include the new generics Decimate and Rama. They simply say mustard. However, oilseed mustard is listed on the label in the aerial buffer zone table, so treat that with a bit of caution. Malathion states mustard. It doesn't differentiate between condiment and oilseed, as do the cypermethrin products Upside and Ship. So mustard insect control can be complicated. So yeah, please consult the label. If there's any question, give me contact me, and or your rep, and hopefully get some good information on that. But mustard remains a little confused right now. And with that, I will take any questions, and I do believe I've finished shorter than I expected, so shorter than I normally do.
Thanks, James. I'm actually just going to pause for a second because I'll put that back on, like I said, at the very end. So speakers, if you want to turn on your cameras and mics again, we will start into our question period. Okay. So the first question is I'm going to give for James. Is there any information in the guide on optimal insecticide spray timing to avoid killing beneficial insects?
Yeah, there is absolutely. I think a really good rule of thumb is, if the crop is in flower, avoid daytime hours. Honeybees and a lot of the pollinators are day active. That really is the function of a lot of flowers is to attract them during daylight hours. So if you can do an evening spray or a morning spray, keep in mind too that the vast majority of these products do have residual action. But to address the question directly, yes, there are recommendations for specific products.
Great. Okay, Cory, you're up next. I'm kind of following along with my book as the questions are asked. So under the weed control tables, is there a section that lists out pre-emergent wheat herbicides that are not residual control? So I think they're just looking at some of those that it's listed very specifically that they do have some residual control, and they're asking about ones that do not have that.
I don't think we have it. We don't have anything broken out like that without residual.
Do you have any recommendations for them if they're looking for something that doesn't have a residual component?
I would say to contact me outside of this if you're looking for recommendations. Off the top of my head, I'm not going to give you a decent answer.
Nope, that sounds great. Okay, this one might be towards a few of you, so just maybe volunteer at this one. With the changes from PMRA surrounding regulations of tank mixing products, has the guide increased its information on tank mix capability? Do you have any recommendations for growers when determining tank mix options?
Can you repeat part of that, Ashley? We basically are following the PMRA Health Canada tank mix policy. Basically just saying as long as it states on the labels that they can be tank mixed, then it's fine. Essentially, it just depends what the product label says.
Okay, no, that sounds great.
Was that
okay?
Did that answer both parts of the question?
I think so. I think people just reading the label too more in depth with some of those tank mix options is also a good recommendation. It sometimes gives a little bit more information than what's sometimes given in the guide.
Okay.
this is to anyone that knows kind of the history and maybe future of the book. Has the development of an app been considered for future versions of the Guide to Crop Protection?
It
In
definitely.
short,
Oh,
oh,
go ahead,
go ahead,
James.
Cory. Sorry, yeah.
Okay. I think it has been. It's just more of the difficulties of the cost and keeping it up to date. Um, I think at one point there was more bit of a push, maybe 5 or 10 years, and that kind of did fizzle out. But there are some other active apps out there. I can't think of the one off the top of my head, but for us to have one, I think it's been considered. It's just a bit of how do we go about it? How do we keep it? How do we maintain it? How do we build it? Um, as well, we're still trying to figure out, would that replace the book? And I don't know if you ever really could truly replace the book with an app, even though a lot of times we do have that argument or that balancing as to, print is quite an old way of delivering information, but it's very effective with something like the guide. I'll let you go, James, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of people really just like having the paper copy, either in the, in the truck or the cab of the tractor. And I mean, there are other jurisdictions that charge for their paper copy. This, whether we're going to go down that route, I mean, this is, what we're doing the survey for, just to find out where people's heads are at, as far as what they're interested in. So yeah, please, sign up for that survey, and that will really inform the way the guide looks.
Alireza, do
I
you have
just,
anything to add there?
just James mentioned that was one of the purposes for the survey, to really understand the need of the clients. So this is the reason that we ask everyone who is using the guide to please participate in the survey, as it will be very informative on the next steps on how to proceed with guides, and potential different versions that the guide can be in terms of hard copy versus digital or mobile friendly versus app. So that survey what we get from survey is really informative for the whole team to how to proceed and what are the needs.
Perfect. Yeah, you guys make sure we'll include that information too when we send out resources later, just in case you missed that QR code. Okay, this one's for Alireza. Under the disease table for crops, does the boxes with a dot under the disease mean that the disease is controlled or suppressed?
So that's a great question, and if that concept applies, there's a footnote. So there's a footnote under the table that says if the depends on the table and depends on the table and the type of products. There's a footnote on some of the tables that talks about the suppression versus control, but for some of the tables, we mentioned that for the expectation on control versus suppression, you need to take a look at the page, and we mentioned that information within the page.
Great. I think this is the last question we've got. It's for James. I think they're referring to some of the information regarding the control of stored, like grain and pests with stored grain. And they ask, what is the best way to find a list of licensed pesticide applicators in the province?
Oh yeah, contact our office. Yeah, so our licensing people would be very helpful as far as that goes. So yeah, contact Crops and Irrigation Branch in Regina.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, guys. At this time, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. A reminder again to look at the downloadable online handouts and fill in the Guide to Crop Protection survey by the end of the month. I'm just going to pop up the QR code here once again.